your value proposition is, and why is it that somebody would want to join you. And obviously, you got to pay market compensation. You got to make it financially attractive for people. But beyond that, if you're trying to oversell it, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Don't ever oversell a startup because it's not worth it. If you're overselling a startup, you're going to have people who've joined because of perceived notional value. And when they join and that notional value does not become real, they'll either quit or they'll be more trouble than they're worth.
Hello Varun, I'm Mohit. I'm not that much technical person, so I don't know whether the question is right or not. Are you planning to work for IRCTC Railways? It's too slow.
So let me answer that question in a slightly different way. And this might come across as a rant, and I'm sure this is going to end up on YouTube and some people will hate me for it. We don't want to work with any Indian customers. Now, do we have customers in India? Yes, we do. Okay, Yatra is a customer. We just signed Book My Show. Book My Show is a customer. And again, we love our Indian customers. Okay, we love our Indian customers. The reason why we don't try to sell to Indian customers today is because they have a very warped perspective on value of software. You can sell them a server for $40,000, even though that server might be filled up with components that are worth barely $4,000. But selling them software for $40,000 is a different ball game altogether. And the other problem is they don't want to buy software from startups. They'll pay Oracle $2 million for the software. But trying to go ahead and pay a startup which is achieving the same functionality as Oracle, $80,000 is hard for them. And everybody wants a deal. Everybody wants a deal. And that's one of the things that we consciously shied away from. And we just said, it's not, and this is, by the way, this is not, and I'll go ahead and say this. I actually told for the longest amount of time my salespeople to try and sell to Indian companies. But the way the software buyers were treating our sales team, it wasn't even worth it. And let me just give you a simple perspective, okay? And I can't name this company, but I'll go ahead and share the example regardless. There's a very large e-commerce company in India. This company, on a net basis, does more transactions than Dell.com. Now, if you just hear that, you will know exactly which company that is. There is only one. Okay? This company was willing to pay $70,000 for the same software that Dell bought for $2 million. Do you think I care to work with them? It's not even worth the support cost at that point in time. When people realize what the value of software is and realize why it is critical for them to have that and what that leads to, we will sell to Indian customers more aggressively. Till then, it's great for building software, it's not great to work with Indian customers. It's really not great. And again, this is going to go on YouTube and people are going to hate me for it, but I'm saying the truth.
But it's good that you have a clarity and a sense of purpose. That's what is important. And maybe they will come when there is that kind of respect shown. And
that day is already coming in pieces. Like I said, I mean, Book My Show is one of our customers and they bought it recently and they paid what is on a global basis a fair amount for the software. So from that standpoint, it's already happening where people realize the value of software and how it makes their life easier and how it makes it more effective for them to run their infrastructure in a seamless manner, that they don't have to go ahead and just throw people at it. Those that try to solve problem by throwing people at it have that approach.
One more.
Okay, wait.
I just want to know your story after you dropped out. I mean, after you chose to not go to the college and to the ScaleArc. I mean, that we missed in the session. So I just want to know about that.
Sure. So I was already writing for PC Quest magazine even while I was in school. Okay, and as a result of that, basically, what I chose to do is when I chose not to go to college, I chose to go to PC Quest Labs as an intern. And I was working at PC Quest Labs as an intern for some time. And then after that, I joined Chip magazine as a writer. for them. And I was writing for them, and I was there with them. And then when Network Computing magazine launched, I was basically the guy running the network computing test labs in India. And then after what was at that point in time known as Just by Digital Media, I joined this new company called IP Nation, which launched TechTree.com. I don't know how many of you have used TechTree.com. Launched TechTree.com, and then after TechTree.com, I went and joined Network 18 to launch Tech2.com, which was, and that name was very consciously chosen by me for that exact reason, that it was meant to be a second attempt at doing TechTree, but this time doing it with sizable resources rather than doing it in the scrappy way that we had done it the first time around. And in the process of building Tech2.com and in all of that stuff, we ended up doing the TV show for CNBC and CNN. We ended up launching the newspaper supplement, which was also called Tech2, with Hindustan Times and everything else. And ended up then, the same team ended up building a lot more functionality for MoneyControl.com. MoneyControl.com already existed, but we took it to a whole different level at that point in time. Then we built in.com and a lot of other stuff. That's it. That's pretty much it.
Hi, my name is Varun. I have two quick questions. The first question is, from the vantage point that you enjoy today in the IT industry, what is the opportunity that you see is causing problems and no one is trying to find solutions for that, and if you had the time you could do that? My second question is about books. Which is the one book that you would like each member of your team to read at least once in a lifetime?
The first one, nobody likes giving away a free idea. but regardless, I think a lot of the opportunities that exist right now, they're all primarily in the data domain. They're all in unmined data, in unmined sources of information, in connecting the physical and the virtual world. And in essence, there's so many of them. They're in your daily lives. They're right in front of you, and you can see them. And when you can realize them, that will be the biggest opportunity that's there. And I'll give you one simple example out of that, which is being able to connect data from the extremely sophisticated, by 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago standards, mobile sensors that are there in every single mobile phone today. And how you could use that to do healthcare analytics and tons of other things, location-based analytics, and be able to do a lot of the data correlation, which would start to make sense of the traffic patterns that exist in the real world, or start to make sense of why commodity pricing works the way it works across the world, and the opportunities that exist as a result of that. I think it's massive. If you look at some of the projects that Google is doing in the X domain, I think they're a brilliant example of how to lead the way in some of those things. And Google just consciously chose to go ahead and only do 10. Those 10 are some of the most capital intensive and biggest ideas that are there. There's a whole wastebasket full of ideas there which need to be executed, and they're in the wastebasket only because they seem too small for Google. So from that standpoint, there's massive opportunities there. And that's, I think, the thing that needs to happen.
You answer the second question regarding the book.
So there's no one universal book for everyone. There's different people in my organization, and different people have recommend different books. There's one book that's come out recently. So to a lot of my developers, I would actually recommend Flash Boys, the high frequency trading book. It's a very interesting book from the perspective of the value of a nanosecond in the world of computing and how it can change the way in which you write software. I'll do that. If I had to recommend a book to my executives, it would be Ben Horowitz's recent book. There's only one book. He wrote one recently. Hard things, the hard things about hard things. And it's a book about entrepreneurship. It's a book about leadership, and it's a very, very pertinent book for any entrepreneur or for any executive that is working at a startup. Very, very critical. There's a book that I want to recommend for problem solvers, and particularly sort of hard-nosed people. Specifically, let's just use that word, hard-nosed people. I would recommend Only the Paranoid Survive, Andy Grove. Those three, I think, the defining books. And obviously, I mean, like, I think one of the books that has had one of the most profound impacts on me as an individual is actually J.R.D. Tata's Beyond the
Lost Blue One.
Beyond the Lost Blue. So that is just it is such a profound book. If you've ever interacted with a few of the people who were close to the Tata Group at the higher levels, that once you understand that, once you see that how it's embodied in that company, you'll learn how closely founders can dictate what their companies become, even hundreds of years after they founded them, and that's a very critical part.
So Satish, my question was really, as a startup, when you're trying to break into the US enterprise market, the journey can be very arduous.
Yep.
Right? So do you have any experiences, anything specific that you did that allowed you to break in, especially for the kind of products that you're doing? You're probably targeting people who are, companies that are going to find most value, are already big, they are large. How do you get them to, how do you make a break into that market?
So that's a very complicated question, but I'll just go into one specific thing which is very critical, especially for Indian startups. In general, Indian startups do not understand global design. In general, and this is a very generic statement, we haven't figured out how to design user interfaces right. We haven't figured out how to design our product that it is capable of appealing to the global sensibility, and that, I think, is the first critical bit in being able to address a global audience that we've got to understand. And when we do, it becomes easier for them to see the value in your product, and then it doesn't matter where you come from. What matters is that they are able to see the value of your product and able to utilize that value. So that's, I think, the most profound thing that I can tell you as far as the perspective that Indian startups need to have for building a global product. We first got to sort the design out.
As Mandar said, I'm here to say thanks, except some of you who know me here know that I can never be short and sweet. So, one of my firm beliefs is that a successful entrepreneur is one of the most inspirational people that you can ever meet. This is because he is a person who's taken every one constraint that life has thrown at him, and he's found a way to make it all whole and come out on top. In this session with Varun, he spoke about technology, he spoke about aspects of setting up business in India versus the US and getting them married to each other. We spoke about, HR, and then he spoke about his interests in racing and driving. He spoke about being a father. What more do you want, right? The biggest takeaway, I think, for all of us aspiring and growing startup entrepreneurs is precisely this, that it is possible for us, and it is extremely interesting and challenging and fun for us to take all of these amazing things that life throws at us and, take inspiration from such people and hopefully follow them on their path to success. So I'd like to thank Varun for being here and sharing his wonderful insights. I'd also like to thank Rohit Bhatia for facilitating this session in such a wonderful manner. Right? And most of all, I'd like to thank all of you lovely people for being here tonight. And it's a Friday evening and you've probably forsaken your first beer or two. I'd also like to thank all the charter members, volunteers and the Pune team for making this event possible.
Thank you.